several times during the webinar. I think Alexis has a couple questions right now, just for us to learn a little bit more about you. So, Alexis, if you want to pop those in there, let's see what some quick answers are here.
I just launched the poll. Answers are coming in.
There you go. Oh, wait. Alexia wants us to give a little bit of time too to get a few more people in here. Some answers. Alexis, do we have an introduction slide that we should be having up right now? It's up in the chat there.
I have the polls and quizzes up.
Perfect. Well, it says you're supposed to give a minute or two, so we'll watch these kind of come in as we say hello. Yeah. See, 5 people coming in from Arizona. Fantastic. I was always curious about that. Nobody from Alaska or Hawaii yet. We have one of my colleagues is presenting at a conference in Hawaii, and I asked her how I could tag on with her and help her be a co-presenter. So I could go to Hawaii with her, but I don't think I'll get approval for that when it's all said and done. A few more people coming in from Arizona. Really, look at the distribution right now. I don't know if you guys could all see it. Yeah, we haven't shared the results yet, but yeah, interesting. It does look like. Well, we'll wait till we share the results and then we'll start chatting about this for just a second.
Welcome everyone. I'm so glad to have you at today's session. Today's session is about preparing for medical school admissions, featuring Dr. Fogerty. Dr. Fogerty is an Associate Dean of Admissions and Recruitment at the College of Medicine, Phoenix at University of Arizona. He oversees dual degree program admissions and the development of community and school partnerships. Dr. Fogerty is also an assistant professor of bioethics and medical humanism and is the co-block director of an introductory medical course. Prior to serving on the University of Arizona faculty, Dr. Fogerty held administrative appointments at Northwestern University, Arizona State University, and Arizona Summit Law School. Please welcome Dr. Fogerty to the stage.
Thank you. I think we did do a deja vu, so we Lex and I want to get going too fast here for you guys, but yeah, we did put a couple polls in there for you. It does look like we're getting some answers across the board. So with that, Alex, do you want to share the results right now?
Yes, I'll go ahead and share the poll results.
So it did look like what I saw. Good distribution next cycle, so this could certainly be a conversation that could help you guys, I think, over this next hour. 2 to 3 years, absolutely. I think a lot of things we can put into play to make sure you're prepared for medical school. greater than 3 years. I presented out there, and yes, I've got this whole slew of people, which is absolutely fantastic. It'll be something we could contribute for everybody during this time. And then your distribution, yeah, boy, just spread across the country was absolutely fantastic. I asked them to add the Arizona, so yay, welcome all you Arizona folks. But yeah, Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, West, perfect distribution, U.S. territory, and not international even. So fantastic. If we got you guys up way too late right now, sorry about that, but we appreciate you guys sharing. So with that, we can stop sharing the poll. And Alexa, okay if I start sharing my screen and get into the presentation?
Yes, you're good to go.
Yeah. Share the screen. And then I think I need to presentation mode. And then display swap settings. Now, do you have the full screen, Alexis?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. All right, guys, I'll take it from here. And thank you for attending. Absolutely an honor to present to this conference and to all of you guys that are thinking about medical school. We appreciate this absolutely. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to really try and walk you through some strategies today, both from a national perspective and from a school specific perspective. So, for myself, you saw those. I think at medical school they give you way too many titles. But one other thing that I do is I serve on the AMCAS advisory committee. So I'm one of the 10 deans across the country that have with the national application. So what you will be applying to in AMCAS, I've been on it for about 5 years. This Choose Your Medical School tool, I helped write it. We're working currently on advocacy and social justice, whether we can add those to the experience section. We are literally rewriting the disadvantage question to try to make it more clear on who and what it really articulates. But what's interesting about that is it's taken us like 2 years to rewrite one question. But I think it really helped when it's all said and done in helping you guys be prepared for medical school and help us, people that are reading your applications, to better understand you. So it's a great perspective. I get to work with colleagues across the country, and I think it'll help you as I chat about this. I won't be just chatting about our College of Medicine Phoenix, but really from a national perspective, how people are looking at your application. So you see the overview of what we're going to try and do. I'll give you a couple pictures about us, just so you can see us, where you can kind of start this process. Like you said, you saw people from pretty much 3 years in looking about this. I think there's some things we can dig into right now. We'll look at the national processes. We'll look at my school specific process. And then I want to kind of give you some tools, things to kind of help you prepare for medical school. I know you always had a section on the personal statement, and I have a couple of slides on that, so it'll be great to see those online. I'll give you some different feedback on what you can do in there. And then also looking at the experiences section and how you can really get yourself well-rounded and prepared for medical school. When it's all said and done, you see the bullet I ended at the end. I want to make sure you trust yourself. This is a big process. Imposter syndrome creeps into people way too often, but all any medical school wants to do is just to get to know you. So really want to trust yourself when it's all said and done. And you guys doing homework like this will help. Absolutely. So the Valley of the Sun, thank you. You're catching us in the middle of August. I always smile at myself. We start our medical school right after July 4th, so not the best recruiting tool in the world. What is 110, 112 degrees, and we're welcome to Phoenix. But this is just a couple of areas that allows you to kind of see who we are, where we are. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving, but on the top picture on the right corner, you got 3 kind of bronze buildings that are kind of climbing right in the very forefront. That is our medical school campus. The delivery starts at that cross street, the white buildings. And that is used to be Phoenix Union High School. Now we turned it into part of our campus, but this is the Phoenix Biomedical Campus. So we are right downtown. The other pictures, you can get a better idea of the white buildings. You see the U of A right on top of the campus, and then all those copper buildings, and absolutely great economic hub for downtown Phoenix. And that last picture you can actually see we're right next to the Arizona Diamondbacks. You go a little bit more right, you see another kind of bubble. That's where the Phoenix Suns play. So our kids are just right in the middle of everything that we have happening. So a great place to call home. As the Dean of Admissions, I might put my recruitment hat on for you guys every once in a while here and say we'd love to have you here someday, but mostly want to just give you the education of what you need to think about. So learning about medicine, where can you start? You know, the American Association of Medical Colleges have unbelievable resources available for you. And these are just some of the things that you can look at right now that can kind of help you in this process. So if you were looking at, you know, fact sheets, inspiring stories, videos, ask the experts, all these kind of things are right there inside the website. So hopefully you're already out there. You know, the Vista Guide to Medical School Admissions, 132 pages. I've been through it. It actually has a lot of wonderful resources for you. And then I call it the MSAR, but the Medical School Admissions Requirements. It is a commercial for pretty much every medical school. There is a cost to it. Some people can get that cost waived. But if you're really trying to figure out where you want to apply, it's a great tool to go in because, like I said, it gives you a really short synopsis of every medical school and then helps you kind of cut down to where you want to go. Talking to your friends, talking to your mentors. I think you guys are already doing it. You can be a part of this association, this group, but you got to make sure that you're leaning on the right people, trying to find out if this is right for you. Your undergraduate faculty, college advisors. I know a lot of us end up in some really big schools across the country, but these people are here to help and they really do care. So you taking the time to go to those classes with your faculty, go into their office hours, go in to meet with them. They want to build these relationships. We have so much virtual world. Thank you. We're doing it right now. But getting to class, talking to people, absolutely help build those relationships when it comes to weather recs and all that kind of stuff you need someday. Absolutely fantastic. And those college advisors, the ones that go ask are the ones that get served. And so you going out there and really trying to build those relationships can help you. And then, yeah, your local medical school. I mean, it's amazing how many people I have here in Arizona that are applying for medical and never been on our campus. We do information sessions. We have summer scrub counselors. We have programming, things that allow people to get on this campus. And so if you have that ability, start building those relationships. You just never know. And most students actually do want to end up in their hometown school, but you just have that support network built out there. So start finding those bridges and start building those relationships. And then if they know you, it's always still another advantage for you. So the admissions process. I know we kind of had a couple more questions out here. So Alexis, do you want to put up the polls again? Because I got a couple questions I kind of wanted to check with you guys on.
Yes, I'll go ahead and launch the next poll. I just launched it.
Thank you. So we're going to see what you guys are thinking nationally. How about that MCAT score? What do you think? What do you think the national average is for everybody across the country? 500 is about a 50 percentile. I think it's 478 to 528. Some kind of really wide range, but they originally built it for a 500 to be a 50 percentile, and then ended up, you know, like 501 to a 50 percentile now, so it actually tweaked a little bit. So see the scores coming in. This. And then same thing, national average for GPA, overall GPA. So scores come in. Okay. About 76%. I guess people still thinking. Let's give it a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds. And what's nice about these MCATs and GPAs nationally, there's a wide range of schools. I'm looking for different types of candidates. And so hopefully we can find a home for each and every one of you guys. It looks like we got almost 80% of them in. Give me another 10 seconds, then we'll go ahead and move along. A lot of things to share with you guys. All right, Alexis, let's go ahead and close the poll. Show the results. And you guys said by far 512 was the national average. You guys were correct. Excellent job. And overriding was a 3.74. Absolutely correct. You nailed it on both of those. So wide range, like I said, 500 is about a 50 percentile. 506, you're probably in the 60th. 512, kind of hitting the 80th percentile there. And yes, those other ones, I think all our medicals would love to be at 519, but that, I think you're up in the highest, almost close to 95 percentile, something like that. So absolutely fantastic. So let's look at some numbers here. You need to stop sharing my screen. There we go. Now it's coming. So applying. So when you're applying to medical school, yeah, like I said, the AMCAS, the American Medical College Application Service. Now that's where I'm on that committee. It's just the general demographic information that you're going to get. Your personal statement's which we'll talk about. Like I said, you guys had another session on that, which is absolutely fantastic. You'll need your transcripts. You'll need your letters of recommendation. These are things we'll all talk about. A supplemental application. So after you do the national application, you apply to medical schools. And then most all medical schools then send you a supplemental application, secondary, we also call it. But it gets more specific information, asking for more specific information on what the needs are for that specific medical school. And then hopefully after that submission, you guys are getting the interview. Getting accepted, yeah, across the country, you guys are averaging about 18 medical schools that you need to apply to. When I hear someone tell me that they only apply to 3 or 4, I actually yell at them. Thank you very nicely. I know they need to kind of put their net out further. In 18, I've heard 25, I've heard plus 30. Yes, there's a cost to every medical school, so it can get expensive, but on average, about 18 medical schools. We want you to get feedback on your application, different areas, like I said, friends, mentors, faculty, advisors. Thank you, other medical students. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But you want to try and get as much feedback as possible as you're going through this. But in the end, I always going to tell you, trust yourself and keep getting these clinical experiences, these volunteer opportunities, even as you apply. This past year for even our medical school, 38% of our class, almost 40% of the class were reapplicants. It is a very competitive process. 50,000 applications, 20,000 seats, so 2 out of 5 are getting in. So you continue to gain that experience in case you need to be a reapplicant, which again, not the worst thing in the world. You're going to show grit, resiliency, drive, determination if you apply a second time. And I guarantee you, I mean, my school finds 40% of you, and they love it that you got those extra experiences. You just got more mature and ready for medicine. And then be able to explain your interest in medicine. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but just that elevator pitch. Could you right now in 30 seconds when talking to grandma, tell her why you want to go to medical school? So it's something you got to kind of think about and something you can start planning on tonight. And then matriculated, you guys already nailed it. 3.74 is the national average, 3.6 science average, 512 and NCAT, and 160 students are the national averages for medical school. Like I said, very competitive. But again, if this is something you want, we're going to get the tools to be successful. Mission dates, I'm setting this up this year because that's the only one they have posted. But any of you guys, 3 years down the road, you can kind of keep this in mind. This is kind of the process that the AAMC follows. So in early May is when it opens up, where you can start filling out your information on the AMCAS application. So that means think earlier what you need to do to be prepared. Do you have those experiences? Do you have those letter rec? Do you have all those things you need to be able to start filling out all the information there? It's not like you start on May 3rd, you want all those tools together, but now you start putting your data into the AMCAS application. So then the end of May is when they start verifying and doing all their homework for us. And then you see another month down the road is then when that's the first time that we get applications sent to us. And then you start the whole cycle. Then you're starting all the interviews, you're starting all the things that the medical schools do to go through the process. And it isn't all the way till April 30th that next year is when you can finally start saying, this is where I want to go to medical school, or start hearing from people on the wait list at the phone wait list solution. So it is a long, year-long process. But again, even before May, I want you to be working on that. Now for the admissions process for us, I'm going to walk you through our school. I'll do that quickly, but again, it gives you an idea of kind of how a medical school thinks. And what I want to do really more than anything is get you behind the curtain here so you can get a true feeling of what's going on. So I share our mission statement, not for you guys to really read it and understand all the things in it. I got 3 words highlighted here, but this is the start of the get behind the curtain. Every medical school tells a story on their website. So when you're trying to select those 18, 20 schools that you want to apply to, start doing your homework. Start looking at the local ones, start looking at their demographics, start looking at their numbers and how many people and how big a class is, how many numbers they're going to bring in for interview, what their metrics are. Thank you. As if you have an NCAT, that might help tell you, and your GPA might tell you whether you just apply to school or not. But for my school, I say, hey, we're interested in physicians, scientists, and leaders. So right there, I gave you 3 hints already. If you came to interview at my school or were invited to submit a secondary, you might say, okay, let me see what these guys are all about. So physicians, we might have a call toward primary care or something like that. Scientists, we might, value your research background. Leaders, okay, this is something that they're valuing. So maybe I need to highlight my leadership background in my application. So as I'm filling out my secondaries, these are things that I can kind of come up with. When we talk about diversity, equity and diversity, we talk about inclusive excellence. So when you're writing out your question, if I have one in my secondary instance about inclusive excellence, then you want to make sure you're using the buzzwords that I'm using. And then you might be applying to University of California, Irvine, and they might be calling it equity and diversity and equity. And then you might come over to Michigan State and they're talking about social justice. So you want to make sure you're tweaking yourself on everywhere that you're trying to go. We got 4 pillars as well, important stuff for us that we believe, but again, it's helping you guys try to figure out the roadmap that you need to start walking through every one of these medical schools. So I shared the mission data nationally. I'll show you a mission data here. So when applying, we get about 6,500 apps. Remember I said 50,000 apps, 20,000 seats. This is how it works out for my school. And then we do the multiple mini interviews. So if you're applying to this school and you did get an invite, then you're going to go out there and go to YouTube and figure out what an MMI is all about. Actually, I listed on the website. We give you some practice videos to watch so you get comfortable with it. But again, do your homework if you're going to one of these schools. Getting accepted, big one here for us, and something I want to start sharing for you, but I think it's something that you guys could think about all the way across the country. On the AMCAS national application, you have an experience section. You get to list 15 different experiences that you've had in your career to prepare for medicine. Our learning specialists, I sat right next to them, and they said the students that are most successful in medical school are the students that are able to balance it all. And that's when they were balancing it all in undergrad. So if you guys right now, and out of those experience section, we put an idea and a focus on 5 of them. So if you got a pen and paper, or this is being recorded, make sure you think about these. But we put an emphasis on your clinical background, your research background, your leadership. So there again on my personal statement right there, I just talked about the 3 things that I just had in my 4 of my mission statement. Then your community involvement, and then extracurricular. So you got 15 things you get to list. The one thing I always say, that extracurricular, I always say just put one thing in there when we talk about that. And it is how you relieve stress. Do I go hiking? Do I go biking? Do I knit? Do I bake? Whatever it is, make sure you list one thing that just shows you're a well-balanced person. You want to see all those great things you're doing, but make sure you know how to relieve stress. Then that leaves you 14 areas for you to fill out. And I think, like I said, you can map them to 18 different things, but these 5 core ones. So have some clinical background. So have I shadowed? Have I worked with a physician? Have I been with EMT? Those type of things are valuable. Have I got some research? Not required across the country, but as these things get more and more competitive, am I in a wet lab? Am I in a dry lab? Am I in a English department doing research? Any of those things count, but you know how to be an active learner, lifelong learner. Leadership, I think it's critical across the country. Community involvement, why medicine? What are you showing? Why is this important to you? Do you go out and volunteer? And then that extracurricular. So, and then if you're able to balance that in undergrad, doing all those kind of things, then we got more confidence that you're gonna be able to balance that as well. And then the attributes on our website, we list 16 attributes. I don't even hide them; they're right on my website. And these are the things that we most value in medical students. So with that, again, hint, a lot of schools tell you the story. If we end up interviewing, what do you think we focus on? We're probably going to focus on those attributes. So again, If you get an interview at UCLA, you get an interview over at University of Virginia, then you might be wanting to think about what are they focusing on at their medical school. Those are things I might want to have some answers for in my head when I get to that interview. And then matriculating, for us, you can see here, good competitive classes. We've actually been a young medical school. I think we're 15 years now in the Valley of the Sun. Back then, there was the 5th largest city in the country. There was no medical school. Now there's 5 of us here in town. But with that, we've increased from a class to 80 to 100 to 120, and we're built for 120 students. So we're right at where we're at. But what I really want to focus on is the math down below. You see the 6,500 apps. We get about 4,500 secondaries once we send them out to you, because you guys apply to 30 medical schools. You see who asked you to go to secondaries. You guys kind of cut beyond your list, but thank you. It's expensive. So we get about 4,500 secondaries. And look what we're doing. 4,500 to about 500 interviews. So we're saying go to 4,000 people already, which is crazy. We miss out on great students all the time. But do the math on the other side. 120 students, 480 interviews. On average, most schools bring in about 4 times their class size for interviews. So just as you're going through those other schools, you're thinking about it, you can kind of do some math and see, okay, can I be competitive? Could I have a chance there? If you can find their in-state, out-state kind of mix, colleague for mine, like University of New Mexico, they got to have, at least 90% of their class from the state of New Mexico. So that means 10% from out of the state. So it might be hard, or the numbers might be tough for you. So you got to think about things like that. We're about, well, for us, it's kind of funny. We get 800 applications from Arizona. I get 2,000 from California. So I'm always trying to figure out the California folks. But then again, the rest of the country fills out everybody else across the country. So when it's all said and done, we end up with the majority of our class from Arizona. But it's, I think, the last few years, 60-40 type of idea. So we got a good population from out of state as well, which we think brings extra diversity to our class. So it's a positive for us. All right, academic requirements. Yeah, this is for us. I can zip through this really quick. But yeah, pretty much across the board, most schools, you got to have a 3.0. The MCAT, we say 500 minimum. I've seen 495 to 500, across the country. Our averages, national, same as the national, higher than science. That MCAT, we're in the 90th percentile. But as I say that, guys, and this is across the country as well, we matriculated last year 501 to 526. So you know how to figure out an average, and then you do get people in maybe that higher skew, but there's room, and so we do find people all across the country that are able to help. I see someone raised a hand. I think we're going to do a Q&A at the end, so type in your questions if you do have a question there, and we'll make sure that we get to you. And Alexa, if you want that changed, just let me know. Then as we go through this process, want to kind of really put a focus on this nationally, pretty much across the board. Medical school and admissions requirements are trying to look at academics, attributes, and experiences. This well-rounded candidate. And so that mix in the middle is what we're really trying to seek out. But this is how we go through our admissions process. And this, again, kind of taking you behind the curtain. I don't share too often, but we want to make sure. Initial screen, you apply to our medical school. We got to make sure you're a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, and you meet our MCAT minimums and GPA minimums. After that, you automatically go to secondary. I think most schools follow that across. Once we can get your secondary, we want to make sure you meet the minimum requirements. You got the course requirements that we had. You got the experiences that we say are important to us. So we cut out a few students, but not too many at that stage. Then that's the big cut. Remember that 4,500 to 500 for interviews. Then we got a whole group of faculty and leaders in our campus and students read at this invite to interview stage. It's the top one where we're saying 4,000 to 500. But then where we make sure you guys align with our mission. So did you tie into those things that I talked about? Your academic preparation. So we are looking at those academics you had. And then your commitment to medicine, that personal statement, those things that you've done, the volunteerism. Do we see all those things in you? Once we interview, we're looking for those personal characteristics. We're looking for the cultural fit. We're looking for your communication skills. We actually bring you guys into campus to interview on our campus. Most schools now are doing it virtually, but we love that physical touch, getting to know you, still think that's most valuable. 10 interviews, that's the MMI for us. We go through 10 stations, but we think it's a great way. You could maybe not do too well in 2 stations. 1 station, maybe you don't kick it off with the interview. Another one, you're like, what the heck were they asking? But when you overall get the average, then it really shows some really good ideas of who we're trying to invite, and who we're trying to learn about. And then the admissions committee, 22 strong, and they look at everything. What I love more than anything for our school, though, before we make a decision, 35 people would have touched your application. And I think that's critical as we go through this process. And a lot of medical schools follow a very similar process. So I want to get you behind the curtains now a little bit on how to prepare and what you could do right now for building your application. Like I said, you guys did have a section on the personal statement, but I still want to take a minute because we think it's critical. It is that flash, it's that picture, it's that, before you've interviewed, it really gets to the core of who you are. So, again, I already kind of said, what is your motivation for medical school? What is your elevator pitch? And, 30 seconds, can you tell us? I think that, what's intriguing you about life, not just medicine? What is this call that you're having? And then, what we want to really do is get down to the core you. What's motivating you as a person? Where do you want as your long-term goal? How do you want to serve? I think those are really the most kind of critical questions you're trying to ask. And then, like I said, this is you as a person. This is the biggest one that we don't want you to try and picture yourself as a doctor already, or as a pre-med student, or a medical student. We want to get to know you as a person at this time. And then the themes, one or two themes, plenty in a personal statement. I talk about resiliency, I talk about humility. I really do love the personal connection. I'll share one with you in just a second. Ideally, personal statement should be written from the perspective of adult, not the childhood. And then you really focus in on just a specific moment or experience. One thing I could tell you this last year, and what I love more than anything, you saw the resilience in the community, the personal connection point. If you are out there volunteering, if you are in a clinical environment, if you're doing those kind of ideas, excuse me, I think it's really important to kind of talk about that human connection. I read one this past year. Unfortunately, thank you, lost most of my folks in the last couple of years, and mom, doggone cancer, and at the end she ended up at hospice, and they took care of her so well, and got to be at the end. I got to hold her hand along with my family. And then my dad's last day, he's like, all I want to do is get to hospice. I want to be safe place my mom was. Got him there, thank you, only 8 hours. And my mom was there about a week, he did 8 hours. But I got to hold his hand. And then I'm reading a personal statement this year. And this one student or one candidate, he is working at hospice. The family goes out for lunch, and all of a sudden he figures out that it's this last moment for this person in the hospice. What does he do? He sits down and just holds her hand. Couldn't do anything else, but just held her hand. And I mean, I'm getting goosebumps up and down my spine right now as I say that. But talk about human connection, and just that was his moment that he knew he had to be a physician. And just, thank you. I read way too, a couple thousand applications, but here I'm telling you a specific story about a specific person, about specific moments. And that's what you want to be thinking about. Did you have that moment? Have you had that moment? Maybe you still have that moment. But just that opportunity that really resonates on why you want to be a physician. You have that kind of moment, absolutely share it in the person thing. And do not worry about being vulnerable. We do not mind that at all. We want to get to know the true you, and the ones that can show a vulnerable moment, a mistake, and learning from it. Those are okay. That really shows the inside of you, and that's what we're trying. You can see a very polished application, absolutely. We want to get to know the feeling. So the do's and don'ts, present tense, don't leave any hanging stories. Make sure that you just are approachable with that humility. Don't rewrite your experience session. Don't share your whole life story. And then don't forget to ask for feedback. Start with close family and friends. With them, they'll give you, I know they'll be positive, give you encouragement, but they'll be able to tell you like, hey, go ahead, you're a little boastful there about this or that. So they'll give you that part. And then get your trusted leaders, those medical professionals, people that you're, those advisors, those faculty, so people that you're volunteering with. They will give you some really good feedback. And then if you can, get to some campuses, get to know some medical students, people, whatever school you're in, they got people that are ahead of you that got into medical school, ask for the names, reach out, connect with them. They know the process well. And then in the end, again, trust yourself. You're going to get so much feedback on your personal statement, but that night before you submit it, Make sure you read it and it's still in your voice. I think that's the most critical thing when you're thinking about a personal statement. The other one, I'm back to those holistic review process, and I want to talk about that experience section. So I talked about those 15 areas where you're able to list all those kind of ideas. We want to see that well-rounded person. So keep thinking about getting these experiences. Again, clinical, research, leadership, community, and that little extracurricular. Think about having that well-balanced person. Wellness is really big nowadays in health and wellness, and you're taking on a very tough position career. And with that, we want to make sure you're successful all the way across the board. So make sure you're thinking about that kind of balance that you're trying to have. And then for you, this whole extra review, this is kind of how what I share with the admissions committee on exactly how we're going to build a class. I won't give you too much from there, but we do look at the metrics. We want to make sure you can handle the rigors. So you're able to take an MCAT, you're going to be successful in step 1 on the block exams. Everything you have to kind of go do those experiences. There you go, 3rd time listed. So you can get an idea of how much we put in emphasis on that. And then, as much as I look at an MCAT, as much as I look at GPA, as much as I look at experiences, we spend most of our time looking at these attributes. I highlighted 2 of them for you, just because I think it's something you could kind of take, and maybe as a take home tonight for you. But I want you to think about what it means to be a servant leader. And a servant leader is someone that has this professional will, but this personal humility. Professional will, so that means you won't be stopped, but you're very humble in how you approach it. If you have those kind of characteristics, it'll show well in your interview. It'll show well in your application. It is something that we value here, but I think any medical school across the country. And then altruistic, thank you, big word for us to saying a selfless giver. So one that just wants to continually give back. That is a position, that is a person that we think and believe in so much. It's what we think you should be thinking about. So as you kind of go through your application process, as you think about these things, kind of keep that in the back of the head, kind of be thinking about it as you're laying down tonight, how can I be a better servant leader? How can I be altruistic? How can I keep giving? How can I be humble? How can I be driven not to be stopped? If I don't get in medical school this year, I'm going to come back again and get those other experiences and make yourself that much more valuable. So the last one for me, this is just one picture of our match day, our most important day on our campus, when everybody finds out what residency program they're going to in the next 4 years. For us, look at some of these recent grads. Of course, we want to keep people home. So anybody coming to college medicine Phoenix at Vanderbilt University, absolutely fantastic. But if anything, I won't show the video, but go look up our match day videos. Oh my gosh, you guys won't believe what we do. Then go look up at other schools, I promise you. But this is our day to celebrate. And you see some great schools across the country that we're going and matching in. But that's really it for me. Wanted to open up for some Q&A and let's see how we can help you from here. So Alexis, should I stop sharing?
Yes, you can stop sharing.
Okay.
Or you can continue to share, but yeah, you can stop sharing. Either way works, but I have the questions that I can ask from the Q&A box.
Perfect.
So the first question is, does the University of Arizona have MD/PhD programs?
Yes, we do. So there's where this is a 4-year medical school, MD, PhD, you got a 7-year. Nice thing for us is, and for any of you guys thinking about a dual degree like this, the best part of it is it's fully funded usually by the school. So guess what? You can do them for free. The downside, you're there 7 years. But again, if you're thinking about that, you probably are doing some absolutely wonderful research. One thing that's nice too is if you got active research, you come in as an MD here and you want to apply to our MD PhD program or the next year, we actually allow it. We did have one student that started MD and she transferred over to the MD PhD. Fantastic.
The next question is, how are non-medical extracurriculars viewed in admissions?
Say it again.
How are non-medical extracurriculars viewed in admissions?
Yeah, I think that shows us a well-rounded person. So again, you got X amount, 15 categories you get to list on the AMCAST application. But if you are going and, I'm coming from an English background, I'm coming from an engineering background, I had some earlier interest, and then during my senior year, I got the core course requirements, and now I'm ready for medicine. We love those candidates. It's just, again, anything that brings diversity to a class, whether it's underrepresented, first gen, geographically, rural, different kind of majors. It's fantastic to any school. So I think we're all looking at how we could just shape and make you be a reflection of our community.
Can you share your thoughts on interviewing within a hybrid model where a school is offering both virtual and in-person for low-income students? Do you think students who pick the virtual option will be disadvantaged or viewed as not committed?
Yeah. In today's world, no. We do 15 applicant visit days. 2 are going to be virtual. And the thing that we do is we hide it from the admissions committee so they don't know which ones are virtual and which ones are on campus. For us, then it's just up to the admissions committee to make those selections. We on purpose want you here on our campus because we think it's the best way to show our culture from there. But if a school does 100% virtual, that's what it's going to be. But if it is a hybrid and it's close, we know it's expensive to live in a school. So I think that's why the majority are leaning toward this hybrid or the virtual only. So I think just think about how you could be most successful. If you think you're in an interview, you can do it like what I'm doing right now, face to face, and Alexis and I are doing an interview. Certainly go for it. If it was me, my personality, I'd make sure I was going to that campus because it's just how I like to interact with people. So know yourself, but trust the schools are really going to, I think, not ping you for making one choice or the other.
Should you be specific about which specialty you want to go into in your personal statement?
No, no. If you do know, fantastic. The vast majority are very open to coming into medical school. I heard one person, she was interested in pathology, and oh my gosh, there's not many people interested in pathology. So I said, yeah, absolutely. Let us know that that's a strong interest for you. But I don't think we make it again a decision just because she wanted to go into pathology. We're going to make a selection on what the best candidates are here in the story. She ended up here in the end, with the story. But we're more worried about that cultural fit again for us. But if you have it, saying I know I want to be a neurosurgeon and this is where I am, and you have the background to back it up to what you've already done, you can certainly be following that kind of path. But I think being open and just willing to learn during the medical school process, I think that's what the vast majority expect from you.
Should we start the application in May going into our senior year?
Again, up to you. Last year, 80% of our class took a gap year. Think of that number, 80%. But I'll attribute a great deal of that to COVID and the pandemic. But that was a huge number for us that everybody kind of graduated, took a year. Depends on your experiences. Have you been able to go through undergrad and get those kind of experience? Are you well-rounded? Have you had those exposures? We don't have to be in a hurry for this. Average age is 24, starting medical school. So, that's kind of a national average there. If you believe you have time during your undergrad to also study for an MCAT, get those experiences, and you're ready, great. If you decide to take a gap year, yes, it's expensive too. I'm extending a year before I'm starting. Find a job that allows you to get those kind of other experiences. So don't be in a hurry. Just look how well-rounded and how prepared you believe you are.
Can you double dip? For instance, if you're doing research in a clinical trial, can those count as both clinical hours and research hours?
Yeah. You want to look in the quick answer is yes. You want to look at those times. So you could have done that clinical trial at the beginning and then were asked to take on a leadership role. And so maybe you could list that in the beginning of here's where I got this clinical experience, research experience, and then I was asked to be a leader in this kind of time frame, and then you could articulate that. So yes, these experiences can have exposures across multiple areas, but you want to make sure that you're kind of, again, just looking how you can kind of make yourself look well-rounded. Oh, Lex on mute.
Yeah, thank you. How important is MCAT score if your GPA is high, but you are coming in slightly lower on the average MCAT score? Do you look at MCAT scores if we take them again and do better?
Yeah. It's a holistic review again. So most medical schools, maybe what's the behind the curtain of the heart, there's certain medical schools, Mayo's in town. Yeah, I think you got to get 512 or higher to even apply, it's very tough school and an excellent school. And so they kind of asked for that. If you're taking the MCAT multiple times, I don't think it's disadvantage. I think, first time great, second time fine, third time, I think they're going to start seeing a pattern. More than three, I think kind of gets tougher. You really got to show some, but I know we've had a couple people admitted, that have taken it more than three times, but as I say it, it's a couple. So I think, the first time I'm taking it, I'm a senior in college and I'm just trying to get some experience and some exposure to it. Didn't get the score as I was testing. Okay, I'm going to take a gap year now, and I just took a 501 and got it to a 512. Before that, our admissions be like, wow, good job, So I think it's valuable. And then tacking in the GPAs. I mean, again, look at the major, you look at the school, you look at the transcripts, you try and see what that academic rigor was inside that school. You see that. That's a huge positive. And so, could you have a strong MCAT or a strong, 506, let's say, and a 3.9 GPA? That's just a couple of categories that we're looking at again, but it's a holistic picture. So for us, every student has a different story. So not too much weight on those metrics. Again, what kind of schools you want to get into. I'm at the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Phoenix, and we're a 515, and then there's our sister school, University of Arizona College of Medicine, Tucson, just 100 miles south. And they're a 510 average, but we both built absolutely fantastic classes, and so it's just different kind of where the schools are, where they're putting focus on. Our dean challenges for really strong class profiles because we're a young medical school, still hiring chairs and still getting research dollars and still getting might have to play that ranking game someday. So we have a maybe different focus in that regard. But again, particularly some people are 501 all the way through. So we love to see that balance all the way across the board.
Can you share your thoughts and tips on how to be a favorable applicant without looking like a cookie cutter application or checking boxes?
Love it. Great question. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. Those things that I talk about, being humble, seeing that call to medicine, being a little bit vulnerable is okay. So don't worry if there is something where, my freshman year, my grades weren't as good, but I learned how to study. I had a setback in my sophomore year, had a family situation, had to step out for a semester to come back in. But when I worked with my parents, one was sick and that got me for that call to medicine. And those kind of stories are just absolutely fantastic. I had to take a year. I had to work two jobs trying to get through medical school. And so maybe my academics are a little bit tougher, but it doesn't stop me from coming to medical school. So just trust yourself, get your story. And yes, I don't know if there is a cookie cutter student. We could, yes, maybe. There's some that have some really good polish to it. But if they're authentic, if they're true to themselves, we see that. And that's all we really want from them. So just, again, more than just trust yourself. You will be ready for this thing.
Are there typically fee waivers available for med school applications like there are for undergrad? I feel like that's a big barrier to applying to so many schools.
Say it one more time, missed it. First part.
Are there typically fee waivers available for med school applications like there are for undergrad?
Yeah, absolutely. The AAMC is fantastic about the fee waivers. So do apply to that. We actually kind of opened up the criteria a little bit during the pandemic to get a little more open, to get a little more yeses for you guys. I believe it's in that same kind of category right now. So yes, it is very expensive. If there is a need out there, let the AMCAP, let the AAMC know. They're the best. If it does come down to an individual school, you certainly could ask as well if they could, waive the secondary fee. Try and say yes as much as I can and try and go off of what the national application is. But we certainly will listen to try and help. I think everybody's just trying to help you guys, be successful. But again, that's another decision whether to come to our campus to interview or not. And if you choose not to because just financially it isn't the best idea for you right now, just to make you 2 weeks, buy a flight and be here and get a hotel, get housing, things like that to help you. But take those into account and we wouldn't hold shit at all. So certainly try.
What are admissions ideas on a gap in leadership or activities in application due to medical issues or mental health?
I'm gonna hear that one again. One more two. I'm sorry, Alexis.
What are admissions ideas on a gap in leadership or activities in application due to medical issues or mental health?
So they have a lack of leadership because of some mental issues or health.
I think the question is more like if someone took time off from doing leadership. So like if they did an activity all 4 years of college, but they didn't do it their junior year, how would that impact their admissions?
Okay. Yeah, for us, I mean, I think a great one is a breadth and depth. I think is really critical for us in medical school. So if you had something that you came back to and did it for a few years, took off a year, but then came back to it, that shows that it's important to you. So I think that would be critical for us, just to see that kind of idea. If you needed to get away from it for another reason, and and agree, experiences where you're just doing a couple things here or there, we like to see the ones that you like to go back to, and that is important to you. Street medicine here in Phoenix, and we have volunteers, and we've got people that have done it for 3 or 4 years. I think that really helps a lot.
Is there such thing as being too well-rounded?
Too well-rounded? Absolutely not. We would love to see well-rounded students. So I think that's fantastic to have that kind of ability. So, for us, I mean, that balance of everything that you're trying to do, I think is critical for us. So if you have that ability to just, look at all the different kind of experiences, try and find what is important to you. I think you do want, something that kind of shows that, you've had a focus on leadership, you've had a focus on film, you had a focus on research. We'll see those kind of things. But just having that well-balanced kind of idea of just, I've thought of it, I've been able to juggle it all. I'm ready for medical school. I think that's a really positive for us.
What do medical schools think about online versus in-person classes?
Yeah, I think we are very comfortable, and that can be a school by school decision. But now I think everybody's had to get used to the online versus in-person class. I mean, ASU has an online degrees. Arizona State University, the school right next to us, has a full online degrees. And if that's how someone needs to get their education, absolutely fine with us. Some schools say, hey, we want some of the core courses on campus. Again, you might want to just go and do the website and look to see. But for us, we're getting used to this, guys, nowadays. So I think that's the most easy way to say that.
And so this will be our last question because our session is about to end. Okay. So the question is, if someone doesn't get an interview invitation, does this mean they aren't being considered?
They aren't being considered? If they don't get an invitation?
Yes, does that mean they're not being considered?
No, I mean, for us, I mean, like I said, 6,000 apps, 4,000 secondaries, 500 interviews. We try and let you guys know as quick as possible whether you're going to get that invitation or not. But we can hold it for a really long time. So you can go through all the way. You could apply in, August, and we might invite you in March to interview. So you just got to show patience as you kind of go through this process. So yeah, have faith. If the school can let you know, then they know, that's for sure. But we do have a lot of students that have to go all the way through the season. We let them know when we finish our interview season, but they could be under consideration all the way through the season. So yeah, keep faith as you go through the process, that's for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Fogerty, for this amazing and informative session. And thank you to all our guests who attended. Next up, we will have our sponsor expo. At this expo, attendees can learn more about the products and services offered by organizations financially supporting NPHC. Make sure to check out all the booths.
All right, guys, have the best of luck to you guys. If you need anything from us, reach out to our school directly. We're happy to help. We answer every question out there, I guarantee it. So, and best of luck going forward. See you, Alexis. Thanks for your help.
You're welcome. Thank you for presenting.